And there we go. Oh, I have an echo somewhere. Let me handle that real quick. Oh, it was Kick. That's stupid. On your stream preview, you have your audio automatically turned on. You automatically get an echo. Odd. But we are streaming on Kick for the first time, just because fuck it, I don't care anymore. Um, but more importantly, we are reading more Lovecraft for today. We're gonna enjoy life, because you never know when it might be your last day on this planet. Let me do one little thing, because I feel like the font is a little small. So let's go back to 150. That didn't really do what I wanted. Ah, okay. And let's just get right into it. So last week we read some Lovecraft short stories. However, there were some requests at the end of last week that we weren't able to get to. And that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be getting through two requests in particular, the Temple, followed by the Nameless City. And we're going to do the Temple first because it's slightly shorter. Ooh, I don't know what either of these stories are about, but it's good reading practice nonetheless. Let's just jump into it, just go immediately into the deep end. Wait one second. Let me double check audios. I think audios are fine. Okay. The Temple by H.P. Lovecraft. Manuscript found on the coast of the Yucatan. On August 20th, 1917, I, Karl Hendrik Gaff von Altberg, Einrenstein, Lieutenant Commander in the Imperial German and charge of the submarine U-29, deposit this bottle and record in the Atlantic Ocean at point to my unknown but probably north latitude 20% with longitude 30%, where mine ship lies disabled on the ocean floor. I do so because my desire to set certain unusual facts before the public, a thing I shall not, in all probability, survive to accomplish. Oh, hello, chat. Oh, there you are. You weren't showing up for a second there. Hello, bot, and hello, Shadowgale. Shadowgale. Saying hello, bot, to somebody who's not a bot's kind of weird. But hello. We have just started the temple. I don't know how long you've been there because YouTube chat wasn't showing up on my screen for a half minute. I do so because my desire to set certain unusual facts before the public, a thing I shall not, in all probability, survive to accomplish in person, since the circumstances surrounding me are as menacing as they are extraordinary, and involve not only the hopeless crippling of the U-29, not U2, opposite direction, Merrick, but the impairment of my iron German will in a manner most disastrous. On the afternoon... Oh, shit, wait. I just realized. There's no way I'm going to see a chat from this, but I also have to have all three chats open. On the afternoon of June 18th, as reported by wireless to the U-61 bound for Kyle, we torpedoed the British freighter Victory, New York to Liverpool, in north latitude 49, 16 degrees. Wait. No, the 49 degrees. I don't know what the dash is. Not western longitude 28 degrees by 34, permitting that the crew to leave in boats in order to obtain a good cinema view for the Admiralty records. The ship sank quite picturesquely, bow first, the stern rising high on the water, whilst the hull shot down peculiarly to the bottom of the sea. Our camera missing nothing, and I regret that so fine a reel of film should never reach Berlin. After that, we sank the lifeboats with our guns and submerged. Dicks! After that, we committed a war crime. Don't worry about it. When we rose to the surface about sunset, a seaman's body was found on the deck, hands gripping the railing in curious fashion. The poor fellow was young, rather dark, and very handsome, probably an Italian or Greek, and undoubtedly of the Victory's crew. He had evidently sought refuge on the very ship which had been forced to destroy his own. One more victim of the unjust war of aggression, which the English Schweinhunde are waging upon the fatherland. Our men searched him for souvenirs and found in his coat pocket a very odd bit of ivory carved to represent a youth's head crowned with laurel. My fellow officer, Light Cleanse, believed that the thing was of great age and artistic value, so took it from the man for himself. How it had ever come into the possession of a common sailor, neither he nor I could imagine. There's a light bit of war crimes. It's a German tradition, don't you know? Oh god. As the dead man was thrown overboard, there occurred two incidents which created much disturbance amongst the crew. The fellow's eyes had been closed, but in the dragging of his body to the rail, they were jarred open, and many seemed to entertain the queer delusion that they gazed steadily and mockingly at Schmidt and Zimmer. Oh, gaze, not glazed. I was like, what the... Who were bent over the corpse. The boatswain, Mueller, an elderly man who had been known better, had he not been superstitious, Alsatian swine, became so excited by his impression that he watched the body in the water and swore that after it sank a little, it drew its limbs into a swimming position and sped away to the south under the waves. Cleanse and I did not like these displays of peasant ignorance, and severely reprimanded the man, particularly Mueller. Next day, a very troublesome situation was created by the indisposition of some of the crew. They were evidently suffering from the nervous strain of our long voyage and had bad dreams. Several seemed quite dazed and stupid, and after satisfying myself that they were not feigning their weakness, I excused them from their duties. The sea was rather rough, so we descended to a depth where the waves were less troublesome. Here we were comparatively calm, despite a somewhat puzzling southward current, which we had not identified from other oceanic charts. The moans of the puzzling southward current, which we could... The moans of the sick men were decidedly annoying. But since they did not appear to demoralize the rest of the crew, we did not resort to extreme measures. It was our plan to remain where we were and intercept the liner Dacia, mentioned in information from agents in New York. In the early evenings In the early evening, we rose to the surface and found the sea less heavy. The smoke of a battleship was on the northern horizon, but our distance and ability to submerge made us safe. What worried us more was the talk of Boatswain Mueller, which grew wilder as the night came on. He was in a detestably childish state and babbled on some illusion of dead bodies drifting past the undersea portholes, bodies which looked at him intensely, and which he recognized in spite of the bloating as having seen dying some of our victorious German exploits. Dying during, sorry. And he said that the young man having seen dying to... Okay, I'm gonna have to change the font size. Give me 1 minute. I keep losing my place. I'm being a little silly. I'm gonna have to resize the window when I do this, but well, that's not... God damn it, Lovecraft. Normally what happens on websites is when you increase the font size, it'll make it so that the lines are not as wide across, so I'm less likely to lose my place when I go all the way from here to here. But this website doesn't do that for some reason, which is a little frustrating. Yeah, this website doesn't do that at all, so changing the font size doesn't help. Damn it. Okay, let's just continue. I'll just start this paragraph over. The next day, a very troublesome situation was created by the indisposition of some of the crew. They were evidently suffering from the nervous strains of our long... Wait. That's the wrong paragraph? In the early evening, we rose to the surface. Okay. In the early evening, we rose to the surface and found the sea less heavy. The smoke of the battleship was on the northern horizon, but our distance and ability to submerge was made us safe. What worried us more was the talk of Boatswain Mueller, which grew wild as the night came on. He was in a detestably childish state. What's a VTuber stream without some scuff? He was in a detestably childish state and babbled of some illusion of dead bodies drifting past the undersea portholes. Bodies which looked at him intensely and which he recognized in spite of bloating as having seen dying during some of our victorious German exploits. And he said that the young man he had found and tossed overboard was their leader. This was a very gruesome and abnormal, so we confined Mueller in irons and had him soundly whipped. German. The men were not pleased at this punishment, but discipline was necessary. We also denied the request of a delegation headed by Seaman Zimmer that the curious carved ivory head be cast into the sea. On June 20th, Seaman Bohm and Schmidt, who had been ill the day before, became violently insane. I regretted that no physician was included in our complement of officers. The German lives are precious, but the constant ravings of the two concerning a terrible curse were most subversive of discipline, so drastic steps were taken. The crew accepted the event in a sullen fashion, but it seemed to quiet Mueller, who thereafter gave us no trouble. In the evening, we released him and he went about his duties silently. In the week that followed, we were all very nervous, watching... Ooh, that's really wide. Now you can still read along with me. In the week that followed, we were all very nervous, watching for watching for the Dacia. The tension was aggravated by the disappearance of Mueller and Zimmer, who undoubtedly committed can't say that word on YouTube, as a result of the fears which had seemed to harass them, though they were not observed in the act of jumping overboard. I was rather glad to be rid of Mueller, for even his silence had unfavorably affected the crew. Everyone seemed inclined to be silent now, as though holding a secret fear. Many were ill, but none made a disturbance. Light, cleansed, chafed under the strain, and was annoyed by the merest trifles, such as the school of dolphins which gathered about the U-29 in increasing numbers, and the growing intensity of the southward current, which was not on our chart. Oh. It at length became apparent that we had missed the Dacia altogether. Such failures are not uncommon, and we were more pleased than disappointed, since our return to Wilhelmshaven was now in order. At noon, June 28th, we turned northeastward, and despite our rather comical entanglements with the unusual masses of dolphins, were soon underway. The explosion in the engine room at 2 p.m. was wholly a surprise. No defect in the machinery or carelessness in the men had been noticed, yet without warning the ship was cracked from end to end with a colossal shock. Lut. I don't know how to say that. I don't know what the German word that is. I don't know how to pronounce that. Cleanse hurried to the engine room, finding the fuel tank and most of the mechanism shattered. You know what? We can actually look up what it means right now. Oh. Red Dragon, Bandai. Let's see here. Oh, it's a Lieutenant Klein's. It's just an abbreviation. I'm stupid. I was just being silly. My bad. He's just saying Lieutenant Klein's. I don't know. God damn it. Lieutenant Klein's hurried to the engine room, finding a fuel tank that most of the mechanism shattered, and engineer Rabin Schneider instantly killed. Our situation had suddenly become grave indeed, for though the chemical air regenerators were intact, and though we could use the devices for raising and submerging the ship and opening the hatches as long as compressed air and storage batteries might hold out, we were powerless to propel or guide the submarine. To seek rescue in the lifeboats would be to deliver ourselves into the hands of enemies unreasonably embittered against our great German nation, and our wireless had failed ever since the Victory affair to put us in touch with fellow U-boat or Imperial Navy. For the hour of the accident till July 2nd, we drifted constantly to the south, almost without plans and encountering no vessel. Dolphins still encircled the U-29, a somewhat remarkable circumstance considering the distance we had covered. On the morning of July 2nd, we sighted a warship flying American colors, and men became very restless in their desire to surrender. Finally, Lieutenant Klenz had to shoot a seaman named Traub, who urged who urged this un-German act with especial violence. This quieted the crew for the time, and we submerged unseen. These guys are just assholes. Like, it's just this guy. He was a little uppity, so we shot him immediately. These guys, they were suffering from, like, mental disorders. Well, June is Men's Mental Health Month. Bang, bang. Just damn. Wow, German healthcare is something different. I thought these were Germans, not Canadians. What can I say? Okay. The next afternoon, a dense flock of seabirds appeared from the south, and the ocean began to heave ominously. Closing our hatches, we waited developments until we realized that we must either submerge or be swamped in the mounting waves. Our air pressure and electricity were diminishing, and we wished to avoid all unnecessary use of our slender mechanical resources. But in this case, there was no choice. We did not descend far, and when after several hours the sea was calmer, we decided to return to the surface. Here, however, a new trouble developed. For the ship failed to respond to our direction in spite of all that the mechanics could do. As the men grew more frightened at this undersea imprisonment, some of them began to mutter again about Lieutenant Clen's ivory image. But the sight of an automatic pistol calmed them. I don't think it calmed them, buddy. We kept the poor devils as busy as we could tinkering at the machinery, even when we knew it was useless. Cleanse and I usually slept at different times, and it was during my sleep about 5 a.m. July 4th. God bless America, land that I love. Back to the story. That the general mutiny broke loose. The 6 remaining pigs of seamen, suspecting that we were lost, had suddenly burst into the mad fury at our refusal to surrender the Yankee battleship 2 days before, and were in a delirium of cursing and destruction. It's a revolution, baby. Welcome to July 4th. They roared like the animals they were before, and were in a they were and broke the instruments and furniture indiscriminately, screaming about such nonsense. I lost my place. Damn it. I was on a roll. They roared like animals, and they were and broke instruments and furniture indiscriminately, screaming about such nonsense as a curse of the ivory image and the dark dead youth who looked at them and swam away. Lieutenant Clen seemed paralyzed and inefficient, as one might expect of a soft, womanish Rhinelander. That was a little more Gaelic than German. I shot at 6 men, for it was necessary, and made sure that none remained alive. Turkey singing before Christmas dinner. Oh my goodness. We expelled the bodies through the double hatches and were alone in the U-29. Cleanse seemed very nervous and drank heavily. It was decided that we remain alive as long as possible, using the large stock of provisions and chemical supply of oxygen, none of which had suffered from the crazy antics of those Schweinhund seamen. Why did he use Schweinhund this time, but not earlier? He called them pig dogs earlier. Whatever. Our compasses, depth gauges, and other delicate instruments were ruined, so that henceforth our only reckoning would be guesswork, based on our watches and calendar and our apparent drift as judged by any object we might spy through the portholes or from the conning tower. Fortunately, we had storage batteries still capable of long use, both interior lighting and for searchlight. We often cast a beam around the ship, but saw only dolphins swimming parallel to our own drifting course. I was scientifically interested in those dolphins, for though the ordinary Delphinus delphis is a cetaceous mammal unable to subsist without air, I watched one of the swimmers closely for 2 hours. and not see him alter his submerged condition. With the passage of time, Cleanse and I decided that we were still drifting south, meanwhile sinking deeper and deeper. We noted the marine fauna and flora, and read... Sorry, I was thinking of where this guy was located. And read much of the subject in the books I had carried with me for spare moments. I could not help observing, however, the interior scientific knowledge of my companion. His mind was not Prussian, but given to imaginings and speculations which have no value. The fact of our coming death affected him curiously, and he would frequently pray in remorse over the men, women, and children we had sent to the bottom, forgetting that all things are noble which serve the German state. After a time, he became noticeably unbalanced, gazing for hours at his ivory image and weaving fanciful stories of lost and forgotten things under the sea. Sometimes, as a psychological experiment, I would lead him on in these wanderings and listen to his endless poetical quotations and tales of sunken ships. I was very sorry for him, but I just like to see a German suffer. But he was not a good man to die with. For myself, I was proud, knowing how the Fatherland would revere my memory and how my sons would be taught of men like me. Man has focus. I respect that. One sec. I'm gonna check one little thing real quick. Where is the Yucatan again? Okay, I was thinking of the wrong peninsula. I thought it was a peninsula on the Pacific, and I'm thinking, like, this guy's in the Atlantic. Okay, no, it's where the meteor hit to take out the dinosaurs. Okay, don't worry. I know. You think I'd remember the Yucatan being where the meteor that hit the dinosaurs landed, but you'd be wrong, apparently. Somewhere at the Atlantic. Yes, somewhere at the Atlantic, but I thought it was like the little peninsula on the other side of Mexico for a second. I was like, it can't be there unless he literally went all the way down and around South America, which would be pretty crazy in itself, and he ended up in the Pacific. But no. On August... Yeah, it sounds like they were started in the Northern Atlantic, but they're going all the way down. They started between, you know, as you said with Liverpool, they started in the Northern Atlantic, but they're going to the Central Atlantic, it sounds like. Ooh. In August 9th, I espied the ocean floor and sent a powerful beam from the searchlight over it. It was a vast, undulating plain, mostly covered with seaweed and strewn with the shells of small mollusks. Here and there were slimy objects of puzzling contour. I'm wearing the wrong glasses. Why did I clean my stream glasses if I'm not wearing them? Why am I not wearing glasses on stream? There we go. Okay. These glasses are dirty. I have to clean these glasses. 1 second. 1 second. A little more stream scuff. Give me a minute. And there we go. There we go. On August 9th, I espied the ocean floor and sent a powerful beam from the searchlight over it. It was a vast, undulating plain, mostly covered with seaweed and strewn with shells of small mollusks. Here and there were slimy objects of puzzling contour, shaped with weeds and encrusted with barnacles, which Kleins declared must be ancient ships lying in their graves. He was puzzled by one thing, a peak of solid matter protruding above the ocean bed, nearly 4 feet at its apex. That doesn't sound all that, whatever. About 2 feet thick, with flat sides and a smooth upper surface, which met at a very obtuse angle. I called the peak a bit of outcropping rock, but Cleanse thought he saw carvings on it. After a while, he began to shudder and turned away from the scene, as if frightened. It could give no explanation save that he was overcome with the vastness, darkness, and remoteness, antiquity, and mystery of the oceanic abysses. His mind was tired, but I am always a German, and was quick to notice 2 things. That the U-29 was standing the deep sea pressure splendidly, and that the peculiar dolphins were still about us, even at a depth where the existence of high organisms is considered impossible by most naturalists. That I had previously overestimated our depth, I was sure, but none the less, we must still be deep enough to make these phenomena remarkable. Our southward speed was gauged by the ocean floor, which was about as I had estimated from the organisms passing at highest levels. It was at 3:15 p.m. August 12th. Oh, damn, they've been down there a while. The poor Cleanse went wholly mad. He had been in the conning tower using the searchlight when I saw him pound into the library compartment where I sat reading, and his face at once betrayed him. I will repeat here what he said, underlying the words he emphasized. He is calling. He is calling. I hear him. We must go. As he spoke, he took his ivory image from the table, pocketed it, and seized my arm in an effort to drag me up the companionway to the deck. In a moment, I understood that he meant to open the hatch and plunge with... Oh, wait, I lost the accent. With me into the water outside, a vagary of... Can't say that word. A vagary of self-harm. And harm to others. Mania for which I was scarcely prepared. As I hung back and attempted to soothe him, he grew more violent, saying, "Come on! Do not wait until later. It is better to repent and be forgiven than to defy and be condemned." When I tried the opposite of the soothing plan and told him he was mad, pitifully demented, but he was unmoved and cried, "If I am mad, it is mercy. May the gods pity the man who is in callousness can remain sane to the hideous end. Come and be mad whilst he still calls with mercy." This outburst seemed to relieve a pressure in his brain, for as he finished he grew much milder, asking me to let him depart alone if I would not accompany him. My course at once became clear. He was a German, but only a Rhinelander. I don't think they roll their R's, but whatever. And a commoner. And he was now potentially a dangerous madman. By complying with his self-harm request, I could immediately free myself from one who was no longer a companion but a menace. I asked him to give me the ivory image before he went, but this request brought from him such uncanny laughter that I did not repeat it. Then I asked him if he wished to leave any keepsake or lock of hair for his family in Germany in case I should be rescued. But again, he gave me that strange laugh. So, as he climbed the ladder, I went to the levers. I should have really picked an under the sea motif for the sounds and not wind. Whatever. I went to the levers and, allowing proper time intervals, operated the machinery, which sent him to his death. After I saw that he was no longer in the boat, I threw the searchlight around the water in an effort to obtain a last glimpse of him, since I wished to ascertain whether the water pressure would flatten him, or theoretically should, or whether the body would be unaffected, like those extraordinary dolphins. I did not, however, succeed in finding my late companion, for the dolphins were massed thickly and obscuring about the conning tower. This guy is just like the biggest sociopath in the story. He's just like, he's just killing people. He's just letting people die. And he's just like, God, I wonder if that guy, like, you think he's like a pancake? You think when he went out there, he just imploded, you know? Let me go to the searchlight. Oh, I can't see him over all these dolphins. Darn it. Like, you think at the very least being, however deep he is, for literally over a month at this point, he'd be like a little more uncanny. But no, he's just the picturesque German. He's just like, well, I will die for the father country. If I die, then it is for a good service. This guy's like the craziest person we have encountered in a Lovecraft story, and he thinks he's more sane than anyone else. Duty first, combined with purely analytics. Oh my god. The guy in Dagon was less batshit than this man. That evening, I regretted that I had not taken the ivory image surreptitiously. I don't know how to say that in accent, but surreptitiously, whatever. Surreptitiously, yes, from poor Clen's pocket as he left. Yeah, that other guy was a Rhinelander. Such aristocratic fucking views. Listen, I'm a real German. He's just like, you know, like part of some of that land that we conquered from other people, you know. He's like a dirty, you know, not true-blooded German. I like how even back here we see Germans just racist AF. Surreptitiously pocket as he left. For the memory of it fascinated me. I could not forget the youthful, beautiful head that with its leafy crown. Though I am not by nature an artist, I was also sorry that I had no one with whom to converse. Cleanse, though not my mental equal, of course, he's a commoner, was much better than no one. I did not sleep well that night, and wondered exactly when the end would come. Surely I had little enough to change a chance of rescue. The next day, I ascended to the conning tower and commenced the customary searchlight exploration. Northward, the view was much the same as it had been all 4 days since we had sighted the bottom. But I perceived that the drifting of the U2... I keep calling it a U2 because I'm American and I'm just so much used to like U2 as in like the U2 plane. The U-29 was less rapid. As I swung the beam around to the south, I noticed that the ocean floor ahead fell away in a marked declivity, and bore curiously regular blocks of stone in certain places, disposed as if in accordance with definite patterns. The boat did not at once descend to match the greater ocean depth, so I was soon forced to adjust the searchlight to cast a sharply downward beam. Owing to the abruptness of the change, a wire was disconnected, which necessitated a delay of my minutes for repairs. But at length the light sea streamed again, flooding the marine valley below. No. I am not given to emotion of any kind. I have noticed. I have very much noticed you are not given to emotion. You are a sociopath. But my amazement was very great when I saw that layer revealed in electrical glow. I've never thought in my life, you know, like, the whole thing about Lovecraft stories is it drives a person insane. But what happens if you threw just an absolute sociopath into a Lovecraft story who just can't feel? You know, like, who cannot feel the emotions, who cannot, like, be driven mad in the traditional sense. I never once thought, what if that was a thing? But Lovecraft has my back, because he thought of it before I ever did. So thank you for that, Lovecraft. Like, he predicted this. He predicted I would never have this thought, but I did have this desire, because I'm really enjoying this. But my amazement, I am not given to emotion of any kind, but my amazement was very great when I saw that lay revealed in the electrical glow. And yet, as one reared in the best culture of Prussia, I should not have been amazed. For geology and tradition alike tell us of great transpositions in oceanic and continental areas. Were plate tectonics known at this point? No, plate tectonics weren't accepted until the 30s. And even then, they weren't actually accepted until, like, the 70s. Plate tectonics are really new. But anyways, I was trying to figure out if he was talking about plate tectonics, if he was talking about, like, the big riff or whatever. This guy, yeah, he's as close as a robot as you can get without being a robot. A German. Anyways. The geology it tells us, what I saw was extended and elaborate array of ruined edifices, as of all of magnificent though unclassified architecture, and in various stages of preservation. Most appeared to be of marble, gleaming whitely in the rays of the searchlight, and the general plan was of a large city at the bottom of a narrow valley, with numerous isolated temples and villas on the steep slopes above. Roofs were fallen and columns were broken, but there still remained an air of immemorially ancient splendor which nothing could efface. A Prussian German. All the other Germans not as good. That's true. Prussian German. It's like, oh yeah, you know, like, we were part of the Prussian Empire, which is like really what the German Empire wishes it was. Like, we're the real dogs, and it's just like, what happened to the Prussian Empire? Shut the hell up. You know, don't ask about that part. We're the Prussians. We're the cool ones. But wait. I need to real quick check who goes there. You were published in... Damn it! It was published in 38. Sorry, we're going to be watching John Carpenter's The Thing later this month, and I wanted to check if Who Goes There was public domain, and I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure 1938... I think currently it's things up to 36 are public domain, and 38's not 36. So sadly, we can probably not read Who Goes There, but I would totally, if I can, I will read that. Ooh. But sorry that was an aside, but I just realized that just by timing wise, how old that story was, and I was like, wait a second, we can read that later in the month. Okay, that's very much a random tangent. Confronted at last by Atlantis, I had formerly deemed largely a myth. I was the most eager of explorers. At the bottom of the valley, a river once had flowed, For as I examined the scene more closely, I beheld the remains of a stone and marble bridges and sea walls and terraces and embankments, once verdant and beautiful. In my enthusiasm, I became nearly as idiotic and sentimental as poor Cleanse. And was very tardy in noticing that the southward current had ceased at lasting, at last, allowing the U-29 to settle slowly down upon the sunken city as as an aeroplane settles upon in town in the upper earth. I was slow too in realizing that the school of unusual dolphins had vanished. Give it a few more. Yeah, it should be at least in a few more years public domain, but ooh. God. I think actually yeah, it's definitely not in public domain because I think 39, either 39 or 38 is when Wonder Woman was made. I know that might sound random, but Wonder Woman isn't public domain for like another few years. Isn't like public domain for like 2 or 4 years or something. So that's why I'm using that as a reference. Like, even optimistically, my brain is like, that's not good for a little while. In about 2 hours, the boat rested in the paved plaza close to the rocky wall of the valley. Hold up. There's a really stupid way I can check this. Yeah, no, that stuff's not going to be like public domain for another 10 years. Never mind. I was like, when did, because I know Steamboat Willie, like either last year, I think, became public domain. So I was like, okay, and Popeye became like public domain last year or this year. And I was like, okay, well, then like what years were those? Those were 28 and 29. Who Goes There was 39. That's not being public. That's gonna be a decade away. So maybe we won't be reading that in a year or two. maybe Wonder Woman was 32, and I completely got that backwards. In about 2 hours, the boat rested in a paved plaza close to the rocky wall of the valley. On one side, I could view the entire city as it sloped from the plaza down to the old riverbank. On the ocean side, in startling proximity, I was confronted by the richly ornamented and perfectly preserved facade of a great building. Lost my place for half a second there because I looked away. Evidently a temple hollowed from the solid rock of the original workmanship of this titanic thing. I can only make conjectures. The facade of immense magnitude apparently covers a continuous hollow recess, but its windows are many and widely distributed. In the center yawns a great open door reached by an impressive flight of steps and surrounded by exquisite carvings like the figures of bacchanals in relief. Foremost of all are the great columns and frieze, both decorated with sculptures of inexpressible beauty, obviously portraying idealism, pastoral scenes, and processes of priests and priestesses bearing strange ceremonial devices in adoration of radiant God. The art is of the most phenomenal perfection, largely Hellenic in idea, yet strangely individual. It imparts a impression of terrible antiquity, as though it were the remotest rather than the immediate ancestor of Greek art. Nor can I doubt that every detail of this massive project was fashioned from the virgin hillside rock of our planet. It is palpably a part of the valley wall, though how the vast interior was ever excavated I cannot imagine. Perhaps a cavern or series of caverns furnished the nucleus. Neither age nor submersion has corroded the pristine grandeur of this awful fane. For fane indeed it must be, and today, after thousands of years, it rests untarnished and inviolate. Violet? He loves throwing in front of words. Like, it technically works. Inviolate is technically a thing. It's not a usual prefix you see. In the endless night and silence of the ocean chasm, I cannot reckon the number of hours I spent in gazing at the sunken city with its buildings, arches, statues, and bridges, and the colossal temple which its beauty and mystery. Though I knew that the death was near, my curiosity was consuming, and I threw the searchlight beam about in eager quest. The shaft of light permitted me to learn many details, but refused to show anything without the gaping door of the rock-hewn temple. And after a time I turned off the current, conscious of the need to conserving power. The rays were now perceptibly dimmer than they had been during the weeks of drifting. And as I sharpened my coming deprivation of light, my desire to expose the watery secrets grew. I, a German, should be the first to tread those aeon-forgotten ways. I produced and examined the deep-sea diving suit of joined metal and examined with the portable light and air regenerator. Though I should have trouble in managing the double hatches alone, I believed I could overcome all obstacles with my scientific skill and actually walk about the deadly city in person. On August 16th, I effected an exit from the U-29 and laboriously made my way through the ruins and mud-choked streets of the ancient river. I found no skeletons or other human remains, but gleaned a wealth of archaeological lore from the sculptures and coins. Of this I cannot now speak, save to utter my awe at a culture in the full noon of glory, when these cave dwellers roamed the earth. You okay, Gunner? He's dreaming. Sorry, my dog is at my feet and he's twitching because he's dreaming. Sculptures and coins, of this I cannot now speak, save how utterly my awe at a culture in the full noon of glory, when cave dwellers roamed Europe and the Nile flowed unwatched to the sea. Others, guided by this manuscript, if it shall ever be found, must unfold the mysteries at which I can only hint. I returned to the boat as my electric batteries grew feeble, resolved to explore the rock temple on the following day. On the 17th, as my impulse to search out the mystery of the temple waxed still more insistent, a great disappointment befell me. For I found the materials needed to replenish the portable light had perished in the mutiny of those pigs in July. My rage was unbound, yet my German sense forbade me to venture unprepared into the utterly black interior, which might prove the lair of some indescribable marine monster, or a labyrinth of passages from whose windings I could never extricate myself. All I could do was turn on the waning searchlight of the U-29, and with its aid walk up to the temple steps and study the exterior carvings. The shaft of light entered the door at my upward angle, and I peered in to see if I could glimpse anything, but in vain. Not even the roof was visible, and though I took a step or two inside after testing the floor with a staff, I dared not go farther. Moreover, for the first time in my life, I experienced the emotion of dread. I began to realize how some of poor Cleanse's moods had arisen. As for the temple drew me more and more, and I feared its aqueous abysses with a blind mounting terror. Returning to the submarine, I turned off the lights and sank thinking in the dark. Electricity must now be saved for emergencies. Saturday, the 18th, I spent in total darkness, tormented by thoughts and memories that threatened to overcome my German will. Cleanse had gone mad and perished before reaching this sinister remnant of a past unwholesomely remote, and had advised me to go with him. Was indeed fate preserving my reason only to draw me irresistibly to an end more horrible and unthinkable than any man had dreamed of? Clearly, my nerves were sorely taxed, and I must cast off these impressions of weaker men. I could not sleep Saturday night and turned on the lights regardless of the future. It was annoying that the electricity should not last out the air and provisions. I revived my thoughts of euthanasia and examined my automatic pistol. Toward morning, I must have dropped asleep with the lights on, for I woke in darkness yesterday afternoon to find the batteries were dead. I struck several matches in succession and desperately regretted the improvidence which had caused us long ago to use up the few candles we had. After the fading of the last match I dared to waste, I sat very quietly without a light, as I considered the inevitable end of my mind ran over. As I considered the inevitable end, my mind ran over preceding events and developed a hitherto dormant impression which would have caused a weaker and more superstitious man to shudder. The head of the radiant god in the sculptures of the rock temple is the same as that carven bit of ivory which the dead sailor brought from the sea and which poor Cleanse carried back into the sea. I was a little dazed by this coincidence, but did not become terrified. It is only the inferior thinker who hastens to explain the singular and the complex by primitive shortcut and supernaturalism. The coincidence was strange, but I was too sound of reason to connect circumstances which admit of no logical connection, or to associate in any uncanny fashion the disastrous events which had led from the Victory affair to my present plight. Feeling the need for more rest, I took the sedative and secured some more sleep. My nervous condition was reflected in my dreams, for I seemed to hear in the cries of drowning persons and to see dead faces pressing against the portholes of the boat. And it was very pleasant for me, actually, because I'm just a fucking monstrous bastard. I'm sorry. And among the dead faces was the living, mocking face of the youth with the ivory image. I must be careful now. I record my awakening today. For I am unstrung, and much hallucinations is necessarily mixed with fact. Psychologically, my case is most interesting, and I regret that I cannot be observed scientifically by a competent German authority. Upon opening my eyes, my first sensation was an overwhelming... I assumed and got the word wrong. Was an overmastering desire to visit the rock temple, a desire which grew very instantly, yet which I automatically sought to resist through some emotion of fear which operated in the reverse direction. Next, there came to me an impression of light amidst the darkness of dead batteries, and I seemed to see a sort of phosphorescent glow in the water through the porthole which opened toward the temple. This aroused my curiosity, for I knew of no deep-sea organism capable of emitting such luminosity. But before I could investigate, there came a third impression which because of its irrationality caused me to doubt the objectivity of anything my senses might record. It was an aural delusion, a sensation of rhythmic melodic sound as of some wild yet beautiful chant, a choral hymn coming from the outside through the absolutely soundproof hull of the U-29. Convinced of my psychological and nervous abnormality, I lighted some matches and poured a stiff dose of sodium bromide solution, which seemed to calm me to the extent of dispelling the illusion of sound, but the phosphorescence remained, and I had difficulty repressing a childish impulse to go to the porthole and seek its source. It was horribly realistic, and I could soon distinguish by its aid the familiar objects around me, as well as the empty sodium bromide glass for which I had no former visual impression in its present location. The last circumstance made me ponder, and I crossed the room and touched the glass. It was indeed in place where I had seemed to see it. Now I knew that the light was either real or part of an hallucination so fixed and consistent that I could not hope to dispel it. So abandoning all resistance, I ascended the conning tower and took for the luminous agency. Might it not actually be another U-boat, offering the possibility of rescue? It is well that the reader accepts nothing which follows as objective truth. For since the events transcended natural law, which are necessarily the subjective and unreal creations of my overtaxed mind, when I attained the conning tower, I found the sea in general far less luminous than I had expected. There was no animal or vegetable phosphorescence about, and the city that sloped down to the river was invisible in blackness. What I did see was not spectacular, not grotesque or terrifying, yet it removed my last vestiges of trust in my consciousness. For the door and the windows of the undersea temple, hewn from the rocky hill, were vividly aglow with a flickering radiance, as from a mighty altar flame far within. Later incidents are chaotic. As I stared at the uncannily lighted door and the windows, I became subject to the most extravagant visions so extravagant I cannot even relate to them. I fancied that I discerned objects in the temple, objects both stationary and moving, and seemed to hear again the unreal chant that floated to me when first I awakened, and all rose thoughts. Wait. And overall rose thoughts and fears which centered in the youth from the sea and the ivory image whose carvings was duplicated on the frieze and columns of the temple before me. I thought of poor Cleanse and wondered where his body rested. And imagine he had carried back into sea. He had warned me of something, and I had not heeded. But he was a soft-headed Rhinelander. Even now, his bigotry is just like, hold up, I have a little bit more racism to get out of me. Who went mad at troubles a Prussian could bear with ease. The rest is very simple. My impulse to visit and enter the temple has now become an inexplicable and imperious command, which ultimately cannot be denied. My own German will no longer controls my acts. Hey Gunner, you awake? You a little confused? Okay. No longer controls my acts. And volition is henceforward possible only in minor matters. Such madness it was which drove Cleanse to his death, bareheaded and unprotected in the ocean. But I am Prussian and a man of sense, and will use the last what a little will I have. When I saw that I must go, I prepared my diving suit, helmet, and air regenerator for instant donning, and immediately commenced to write this hurried chronicle in the hope that I may someday reach the world. It may someday reach the world. I shall seal the manuscript in a bottle and entrust it to the sea as I leave the U-29 forever. I have no fear, not even from the prophecies of the madman Cleanse. What I have seen cannot be true, and I know that this madness of my own will at most lead only to suffocation when my air is gone. The light in the temple is a sheer delusion, and I shall die calmly like a German in the black and forgotten depths. This demonic laughter which I hear as I write comes only from my own weakening brain. So I will carefully don the diving suit and walk boldly up the steps into the primal shrine, that silent secret of unfathomed waters and uncounted years. And that was The Temple by Lovecraft. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I said I would also do The Nameless City, but I'm actually going to wait until we will do a special midnight stream tomorrow as well. I know we're also doing Expedition 33 tomorrow, but I'll make sure to find the time to also read this tomorrow, mostly because I've had a bit of a week and I feel like it'd be best just to cut this stream a little shorter here. My apologies for that, though. They appear to be about the same length. Looks like the Nameless City is slightly shorter, but we will be back with that tomorrow. My apologies for the more abrupt end. It's taken us an hour. It says I just don't think I'm mentally in the right spot because of all the mistakes I was making. So I hope that tomorrow, by coming back to it, I'll have a little bit more of a clear read. But if you enjoyed that, show it by giving it a like, the stream a like if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, well, actually, if you're on YouTube or not, follow along for more content, whether that means a subscription or a follow, depending on whatever platform you use. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day and a wonderful life. And remember, don't lose your head. We will be back tomorrow with Expedition 20, Expedition 33 earlier in the day, and we will be continuing and reading the Nameless City after that stream at midnight yet again. Sorry for the more abrupt ending. I will not be raiding out, but I hope you enjoyed this.